Okay, so here I have the required measurements we'll be needing to draft our trouser pattern. So I have my waist to hip measurement, and to take this measurement you will just measure from your waist. Remember how I taught you to measure your waist to find where your actual waist is simply by tying a band around the part of your waist that goes in when on the side when you tilt to one side. Okay, so you find that point, you tie it with a band, and then that is your waist. Okay, so you can simply do that, and then you measure from that point where your band is all the way to the fullest part around your bum or hip area. Okay, so that is your waist to hip measurement. If you want to see how to measure the waist to hip, you can simply watch one of my videos, which I'm going to link in the description and also somewhere on top in this video. Okay, so you see how to measure, how to find your true waist or your natural waistline. Okay, so that is it for our waist to hip measurement. Next measurement you'll be needing is your crotch depth. Now, to take your crotch depth measurement, what you will need to do is you will need to sit on a flat surface. Okay, like a chair that does not have a foam. Okay, a hard surface. Basically, you sit on it and then you measure from your waist to the surface. Okay, so you measure from your waist to the surface, and that is your crotch depth. Okay, you measure from your waist wherever you want your trouser to sit on your waist, okay, to the surface. That will be your crotch depth. Next measurement you'll be needing is your waist circumference. So after you find your natural waistline or the parts you want your trouser to sit on your waist, you measure around it. Okay, measure the circumference of that area, and then you record what you have. Next, you'll be needing your hip circumference. This is simply the measurement around the fullest part of your bum or hip area. Then you'll be needing your thigh circumference, which is the circumference around one of your thighs. Your knee circumference. Now, to take your knee circumference measurement, you would need to sit down also. You sit somewhere, and then with your knees bent when you sit, just the way your knee bends when you sit, you just take the circumference around your knee. Okay, so the next measurement you need is your ankle circumference. So you just take the circumference around your ankle. You would want to leave a little space so that it will be easy for you to put on your trousers after you make them. Finally, we will need our trouser length measurement. Okay, so our trouser length measurement is from the point where your trouser sits on your waist, wherever you want it to sit, all the way to the length you want it to get to on your ankle. Okay, so that's it for the measurements we'll be needing. So now, as you can see here, I have my paper, and you can see I have two lines drawn on my paper already. So I have one line at the top here, a horizontal line, and this is just the top margin. Okay, I'm going to be calling this my waistline. So there's no particular measurement between here and here. It's not a fixed measurement. You can use whatever you want depending on the size of your paper and your discretion. Okay, I also have another line here by the right. This is just my right margin. There's no measurement in particular. Okay, so I drew this line all the way down to the end of my paper. All right, so now we're going to get started. So to get started, the first thing we're going to be doing is you're going to be imputing our trouser length measurement, and this is simply the length from the waistline. I'm just going to label this waistline for clarity purposes. So this is our waistline. I will label this WL. Okay, so this is our waistline. So we're going to be measuring from our waistline here downwards. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, our trouser length in this case is 40 inches. So I'm going to be measuring 40 inches from this waistline here all the way down. So I'll measure from the waistline here. And 40 inches is here. So I'm just going to measure it a couple of times at different points so that I will get a straight horizontal line. Okay, if you understand what I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm going to rule a line across with my straight ruler. Okay, so the first measurement you're going to be imputing, the next measurement you're going to be imputing would be our waist to crotch depth measurement. Okay, so our crotch depth measurement is what you're going to be imputing now. So our crotch depth, as we mentioned earlier, is 10 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to be marking 10 inches from the waistline downwards. Okay, so I'll mark 10 inches here from the waistline. 10 inches here, and then I'll just rule a horizontal line across. Okay, so we're going to be calling this line our thigh line, okay, or TL. So I'll call this my thigh line. Okay, so that's our thigh line. So the next thing we're going to do is you're going to be imputing our hip circumference measurement. So our hip circumference is 40, and to impute that measurement, we'll divide it by 4. 40 divided by 4 is 10 inches. Okay, so I'll mark 10 inches across here. I'll mark it here on this thigh line, and also here on the waistline. So I'll draw a vertical line to connect those points. So I'm going to call this my crotch depth line, because the distance from here, from the waistline here to this place, is our crotch depth. So I'll call this CDL, or crotch depth line. Okay, so the next thing I'll mark is my waist to hip measurement. So waist to hip measurement is 9 inches. I'll mark 9 inches from the waist here downwards. So this is our waist to hip. So I'll go ahead now and rule a line across, a horizontal line across, to form our hip line. Okay, so this is now our hip line. I'm going to call it HL. So the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be marking our crotch extension. So we're going to be marking this crotch extension on this thigh line. Okay, so all we need to do is we're going to simply extend this thigh line to come a little more towards this side. Okay, so I'm going to just use my straight ruler to extend this line. We'll extend it. So next thing I'm going to do is I'll take my hip measurement and divide it by 20 to get your crotch extension. Okay, so to get your crotch extension, what you need to do is you take your hip measurement and divide it by 20. So my hip measurement in this case is 40. Okay, so I'll take 40 and divide it by 20, and that gives me 2. Okay, so I'll mark 2 here. So this is my crotch extension. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to determine the knee of my trouser, the knee line of my trouser. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to simply do is I'll measure from this thigh line. Okay, this line I'm calling my thigh line. Can you see it? Yeah, I'll measure from this thigh line here all the way to my ankle line. This line I drew here, that is the trouser length line, or the ankle line. I'm just going to label it AK. Okay, or ankle line. So this is my ankle line here. So I'm going to measure what I have from this thigh line here down to my ankle line. Okay, and I'll see what I have there. So I have 30 inches here from my thigh line to my ankle line. I have 30 inches. I'm going to divide it by 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15, and then I'll subtract 1 inch. So 30 divided by 2, 15, subtract 1 inch, that gives me 14. Okay, I hope you're following. So I'm going to be marking that 14 from this thigh line. So from this thigh line, I'll mark 14. Okay. So I'm going to mark 14 inches here. And then I'll draw a line, a horizontal line across. Okay, so this is our knee line. So we'll label this KL. So now we have our thigh line, our knee line, and our ankle line. Okay, so what we're going to do next is you're going to be working on the outer seam of the trouser. This line here is the outer seam, so we're going to be working on it, okay, to give us the shape we want. So first, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be marking 1 inch from on this knee line. We're going to be coming in by 1 inch. Okay, so I'll mark 1 inch here. So this is 1 inch. Next, also on this ankle line or the trouser length line, we're going to be marking 1 inch. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll simply use my straight ruler and connect these 2 points. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect from this point now back to this part of my thigh line. Can you see what I'm doing? So now I'm going to connect from this part of my thigh line back to this point. Okay, okay, so that's it, and that is my outer seam. So I'll just label it OS. That's the outer seam of my trouser. That's OS. So now next I'm going to be working on the inner seam. This other side is the inner seam of my trouser. Okay, so on this thigh line I've already marked the crotch extension line, and you know how we got it. If you cannot remember, you can simply play the video back and we watch that part. So we're going to proceed to put the other measurements. So we're going to be imputing our measurement for the knee line, and our knee circumference measurement was 16 inches, right? So we're going to divide 16 by 2, and that gives us 8 inches. So I'll be marking 8 inches here. On the knee line. Okay, so I'll move to the ankle line. Our ankle circumference is 13 inches. 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. So I'll mark 6.5 here. Okay, so now I'll use my straight ruler to connect all these points. Okay, and I'll connect this to my crotch extension mark. Okay, so this is our inseam. Okay, I'll just call it IS. So this is our inseam, inner seam. So now we're going to be working on this part of our trouser. Okay, so to do that, we're going to first come in here on the waistline by half of an inch. So I'll mark half of an inch here. This is half of an inch. Okay, then on this thigh line I'm going to be coming up by 2 inches, so I'll mark 2 inches here. Okay, so next thing I'm going to be doing is first I'll use a ruler to connect from this half inch mark to this 2 inch mark. Then I will get a suitable curve and I'll connect this down here to my crotch extension mark. And that is it. So I'm going to just highlight the parts where we're going to be cutting out. This part is no longer needed, it's no longer useful to us. So I'm just going to mark it so you can be able to identify the parts that we will not be using. Okay, so that's it. So next thing we're going to do now is we're going to be imputing our waist measurement on this trouser pattern. So our waist circumference is 28 inches. Okay, so 28 divided by 4 is 7. So I'll be marking 7 from this point. Okay, now if you want to add that to the front part of your trouser, you would want to add that allowance to your waist measurement. Okay, for example, if you want to add an 1 inch for that, if you want to make your dart 1 inch, you will simply mark 7 and then you add 1. Okay, but I do not like to add that to my front trouser pattern, so I'm going to be skipping that. So I'll just take my waist measurement 28 divided by 4, and that is 7. So I'll mark 7 here. Okay, so next I'll use my curve to just connect it back to the hip line. Okay, you can see my hip line here, so I'll just connect this back here. Okay, so and that's basically it for my front trouser pattern. So I'm going to cut this out and then we'll go ahead and do the back part of our trouser pattern. So here I have the front part of my trouser pattern. Okay, and now I'm going to bring another pattern paper and then I'll place this on top and then we would start to work on our back pattern. Okay, so now I have my new pattern paper underneath the front part of my trouser block. Okay, so here on this new pattern paper you will notice that I have a line at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to be taping this front pattern to this paper at the back. Okay, so the base of my trouser or the ankle line of my trouser is going to be sitting on this line which is drawn on the paper I have underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to use tape and I'll just tape it down. Okay, okay, so here I have my front pattern securely taped on my new paper. Okay, can you see it? So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly extend this hip line. Okay, slightly extend this hip line out here and all the other lines as well. I'll be extending the hip line, the thigh line, the knee line, and the ankle line. Okay, so let me start with the hip line. So now I'll come back to this hip line. Okay, this is the major place where we're going to be working on, so I hope you can see it clearly. Yeah, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slash through this hip line. Okay, I'll slash almost to the end. Okay, I'll just leave a little bit of paper here, so I'm going to slash. This is what I mean. So I'm just going to leave just a little something to hold it down so it doesn't come off completely. Can you see what I did? So now I'm going to open this part up by 1 inch, 1.5 inches. Okay, I'll be opening this up by 1.5. So I'll just tape this down. I'll measure 1.5 here. .5 from this hip line upwards. Okay, can you see from this hip line upwards? I'll measure 1.5 and I'll just mark it. Okay, so now I'll bring down this upper part of my paper to that 1.5 mark and I'm going to tape it down. Okay, so now I have it taped down. Okay, so proceed to work on the remaining part of our trouser. So now we'll go ahead to extend this line, this waistline here. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding my allowances for the trouser. Okay, so on this waistline I'll be adding 2 inches this way, so I'll mark 2 inches here. Next, on the hip line, which is this part, I'll just extend the line a little bit as well. So I'll be measuring 2 inches from here outwards. Okay, can you see from here? So next, on the tie line as well, I'm also going to be measuring. On the tie line, I'll mark 2.5 of an inch, 2.5 inches rather. So I marked 2.5 on the tie line. Next, I'll move to my knee line. Okay, my knee line, I'll add 2 inches. And finally, on my ankle line, I'll also add 2 inches. Okay, so now I'll use a straight ruler to connect from my ankle line to my knee line. And then from my knee line all the way to my crotch extension point. Okay, so now at this point we're going to need a curve to connect this. Okay, so now that I'm done adding all of my allowance, next thing I'll go ahead to do is I'll be closing up this part I opened. Okay, I'll close it up. I would have to add allowance for that because I'm going to be adding that to the back part of my trouser. So here I'll just extend this line this way by 1.5 inches because that is how wide I want my dart to be. So I'll mark 1.5 here. Now extend this line. So I'm just going to connect this back to the hip here. I'm going to mark 1 inch on this front pattern down here. Okay, so I'll mark 1 inch here. This is so as to remove any excesses that will form in the front waist area of your trouser. Okay, so you can just mark 1 inch here. This is optional, of course. And then you connect it back to the waist. Don't worry, it's not going to affect your measurement. So I'll connect this back using my hip curve ruler, connecting it back to the waist. Okay, so I'll just cut this off. Okay, so that's it for the front of our trouser for now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut out the back part. Okay, just follow the lines, cut out this back panel of our trouser, and then we'll continue working. Okay, so here I've cut the back part of my trouser, as you can see. Cut it all the way here and then up here. So I'm going to separate it from the front part. Okay, so here's my front trouser panel, front trouser block, and here's the back. Okay, so now we're going to cut out our waistband. Okay, band for the waist. So if you're going to be adding waistband to your trouser, this is what you should do. Okay, However, if you will not be adding band, you can go ahead to create the darts for the back of your trouser panel. Okay, so but I want to show you how I do my waistband, so I'll go ahead and show you that. So to create your waistband, what you need to do is, first on the front block, you will just mark 1 inch downwards. Okay. So I'm going to just connect all these points. Okay, so this is our waistband. So I'm just going to call this front waistband. Also for the back, I'm going to mark 1 inch as well. So now we'll go ahead to do our darts. Okay, for the back. For the darts on the back, we'll simply use our bust span measurement. So to get our bust span measurement, you take your bust, divide it by 4, subtract 1.5. Okay, so my bust is 38, divided by 4 minus 1.5 is 8. So my bust span is 8. So I'll take that bust span and divide it by 2 again, and that will give me 4. So I'll simply mark that 4 beneath this waistband. However, if you are not going to be adding waistband, you can just start from your original waistline. But since we have a band here, I'll start from underneath the waistband. I would mark 4 inches away from this point. Okay. Yeah. So I'll mark it somewhere here again. 4 inches here. Okay, then this hip line, this is my hip line, I'm going to extend it again back inside. Can you see? This was my hip line and this was my thigh line. Okay, if you remember from the front, so I'll just extend it inwards. Okay, so now this line, this 4-inch mark, these two 4-inch mark, I'll extend them all the way to the hip line. Okay, hope you can see what I'm doing. Good. So now what we're going to do is, I'm going to be marking 0.75 on both sides. Okay, because the allowance for that we left was 1.5. So 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75, or 3/4 of an inch. So I'll mark 3/4 of an inch on both sides, here and here. Now on my hip line, I'll come up by 2 inches. Okay, so I'll mark 2 inches here, and I'll simply connect it. Okay, and that is it for my trouser pattern.